Peace, greetings to you all. It's your brother Naheem, BKA Lord Abba, AKA Mr. Just the Facts. Family, make sure you smash that like button. If you're new to the channel, make sure you hit notifications. This is our other Be the Power channel, BTP Media Group. Hit the subscribe button, hit the little bell icon next to it, so that you can become a part of the notification nation. If you would like to donate to our platform, you can use the Cash App handle, Be the Power. This channel does not accept super chats as of yet. We're still growing the channel. Shout out to everybody in the building. I see everybody starting to come in. Share this out, family. We're trying to grow this channel right here. I got my brother Grim in the building as well. We're gonna have a conversation tonight about the Freedman philosophy, and these are just 6 points that we would like to share with the family. The other brothers of Be the Power will be here soon. Somebody making a request. Let me see if I have that on my background. I don't have that one on the background, but I'll put this one. I don't know. I don't have that one, but I'm gonna just put up I'm gonna put this one up right here. I'm gonna put this one up right here. All right, so let's get into. All right, what happened? These are six of our crucial points of our Freedman philosophy. These are just 6 of many, right? This is our philosophy. This is a part of what we are. And let me see. So last year in the summertime, we wanted to do something great insofar as legacy and lineage is concerned. So I think it was shortly after we had popularized the term reparationist, the ancestors moved through us again. And this term freedman just kept coming up in our conversations. And we were speaking about the lost cause teachings one day, and those teachings were, we know how harmful they were to the education that we received as descendants of freedmen here in the United States of America. And we said, how if we came up with a counter to the lost cause teachings, the daughters of the Confederacy? How if we came up with the United Sons and Daughters of the Freedmen? And as soon as that was uttered into the ethers, everything just started to fall in place, insofar as institutions wise, insofar as how we viewed the history, because slavery was an atrocious time for our people. But it was after slavery that we suffered in a way that no humans, I believe, have ever suffered in the history of the world, and the history bears that out. So let's run through 6 of the points real quick. Shout out everybody that's in the building. I see y'all. Let's run through our 6 points real quick. Number 1, the restoration of the freedman legacy via identity. So you hear us saying descendants of freedmen. This terminology has caught on all over the country. I was in Clubhouse yesterday. They had a group set up, and there was a sister in there. She was talking about, I'm using freedmen from now on. It makes sense. It's the only thing that's on the records. I was like, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about right there. And it is the terminology, freedmen. It signifies something. It signifies that our ancestors were once enslaved, and that on our own, as what should have been restored American citizens, we were supposed to live the American dream. We're going to pull some things up in that regard a little later. So we felt, even all the way back when last summer, that this term freedman was a better use of a name when it comes to lineage. I mean, I could compare it to America's descendants of slavery. If you remove Dr. Darity's criterion, then, well, you can have Irish folk and other folks that can, of white or European stock, that can say they too are descendants of slavery. But when you say freedmen, if I'm not mistaken, there's no other people in the world to which this particular terminology has been used. And I stand to be corrected, but it definitely hasn't been used in the way that we use it now. Number two, political unification with descendants of freedmen across the nation. It is our goal, it is our desire to pull all of our people, if we can, of voting age into one political unit. We may debate if that is a political party, which is something that I would call for, and which I do call for, our own political party, a PAC, super PAC, etc. We need to pull all of our people into one group. So getting this information out about our identity, our freedman legacy, is vital in achieving point number two. Number three, of course, reparations for the descendants of freedmen. We establish the identity. We establish the unification. We form ourselves into a nationwide voting block with sub-blocks, of course, in each state, where we become vocal and powerful in our local politics. This is how we move the needle towards reparations for the descendants of freedmen. Number four, holding America accountable for the overthrowing of Reconstruction. All the problems in America descend from the sabotage of Reconstruction. You see, reparations is not just a check. Reparations is a program that is designed to be reparative over generations. This is how we begin to right the wrongs of Reconstruction. Number five, reclaiming the former glory of our freedmen forefathers. Often you've heard me, my brothers, speak on Be the Power about how we skip past some of the greatest quote unquote Black history in Black history. And we go to Egypt and Morocco and sub-Saharan Africa to the Zulu tribes and all of these other tribes, but we forget and bypass the freedom fighting efforts of our people here. So we must be instrumental in raising up the glory of our freedmen forefathers and foremothers. We must be instrumental in that work. This is how we start to infuse point number one, that restoration of the freedmen legacy via identity. Number six, the freedmen, maintaining the freedmen legacy. An infusion of freedmen history into our public school system, reversing the false narratives of the lost cause teachings. For those that do not know, the lost cause teachings were basically the psychological way in which the South reclaimed victory over the North after the Civil War. The South won, the South lost the physical battle, but the mental battle it maintained. It won, I should say, and then maintained. And the fact that we had financiers in the North that saw cotton, king cotton and tobacco as profitable, whether it was financial institutions or insurance companies, when it came to this issue of freedmen, of freeing the slaves, most of them stood neutral because they felt that maybe it's not a good idea if we free the slaves because we're going to lose some money and investments. You know, these are things that we're going to get into. So I got my brother Grim on. I got my brother Josh on. Open it up to my bros. Y'all want to add anything before we move forward? I don't know what's going on. Brother Grim? Okay, well,
yeah,
brother,
peace. I'm here, brother. I'm here.
Okay. I was about Brother Ali is right on time. Yeah, so
peace, y'all, peace.
So you know, we ran through the 6 points. Let me just read them real quick because Ali just jumped on. 1 is the restoration of the Freedman legacy via identity. 2 is political unification with descendants of freedmen across the nation. 3, reparations for the descendants of freedmen. 4, holding America accountable for the overthrowing of Reconstruction. All the problems in America descend from the sabotage of Reconstruction. 5, reclaiming the former glory of our freedmen forefathers. 6, maintaining the freedman legacy, an infusion of freedman history into our public school system, reversing the false narratives of the lost cause teaching. So these are just but 6 of some of our many philosophical points that we are going to be pushing as we push forward with this new but old identity, that being the freedman. So bros, jump in and speak to that real quick before we start getting into the nitty and the gritty.
Absolutely. This brother Grim, I rise to give honor to first the father of the Freedman Nation, brother Frederick Douglass, who fought tirelessly for as an abolitionist for the rights of freedmen and for the abolition of slavery. And with that, in dealing with could you go ahead and read the first point for me so we can set it off? If you can read that again.
All right, definitely. Hold on. What I'll do is I'll share it again.
Yeah.
So we could pull it up. Boom. Okay. So 1 is the restoration of the freedman legacy via identity.
I want to speak to that real quick. The first point. The restoration of our identity and our legacy as freedmen is vital. And here's why. Brother Logic always talk about it every time we talk about this discussion. And this thing is not happening by any type of coincidence. I believe that our people, the people that are catching on to this freedman ideology, are being guided by the ancestors and the Most High, right? So when we connect to our legacy as freedmen, we are connecting to something very powerful, because when you go back into the Reconstruction era and the Reconstruction history, you'll see the great and heroic lengths that our men and women, I say men and women, went to establish themselves as citizens in this country, free and equal to every other citizen. And not only that, but our identity is basically tied into the government records and the laws in regards to freemen, and particularly the Reconstruction Act of 1870, the Civil Rights Act of 1866. We tie into all of that. And people say, well, That was way in the past. Why is that important? Because that's one of the points. But I'll just say we have to connect back to that identity, because that identity is who we are, and that's what made us great, which our us striving and advancing in horrible circumstances. I think I read something earlier. They say like they would have freedmen, dozens of freedmen were being hung and killed weekly for only asserting their rights and their privileges as citizens and standing up, trying to be dignified. They were killed for nothing less than trying to be their freedmen selves. So basically, we have a legal language crafted into the narrative of being a freedman. Because yes, we were in slavery at one point, but in 1865, right, using the language of an old science that we studied, that was it's a new era of time now. So our identity is directly tied into the efforts of our father, Frederick Douglass, and many others. Hiram Rebels, the list goes on and on and on. And I'll stop right here and I'll say that basically when the South, quote unquote, lost the war, most of our people were propelled by these acts, these Reconstruction acts, to form Reconstruction governments. And that's why we say be the power. Be the power, because those freedmen of those days were being the power, and they had took over. And back in those times, we came right out of slavery. Some of our free brothers from the north and sisters from the north came down, and there was no facet of government in which our people was serving, and we were disadvantaged, sometimes violently. One example being the Colfax massacre of 1873. And I was asking Ali, because I know Brother Ali went into some of these histories before, but like we were literally sitting in the governments, and our people were basically violently, the Confederates actually, and we're talking about after the war, they actually violently took back these governments, and they hold some of them till this day.
Indeed, Brother Josh.
Yeah, man. It's just something about. I'm just gonna piggyback on number one, and I'm gonna move on to another one. But it's just something about when you say freedman, and it just takes you back to. It just makes you feel a certain way, When you say the word freedman, it makes you think about, the fight that it took to get up off of them chains, to get up out of that slavery. And it makes you think about, what people did in spite of just coming out of that horrible institution. And it makes you think of what would have been if they didn't overthrow that Reconstruction, if they didn't do white mob violent domestic terrorism, if they didn't institute black codes and have a sharecropping system and peonage and all. It makes you think about what would have been. And if it just, the spirit of that, it just kind of gets rekindled in you in me, I'm gonna speak for myself. When I say the word freedman, and understand it, we're saying freedmen. It's saying freedmen. So it's actually, when you say that, you're talking about a people, you're talking about the word men is, just like when you say man, or it's not necessarily genderized, but it's saying people. So some people didn't like calling themselves a descendant of a slave or institution of slavery or whatever case may be. That little nuance, I don't really care about the nuance, but I'm just saying when I hear the term freedman, that identity and that language, it just makes me feel that legacy when I go and think about it. And then I wanted to talk about number 2, political unification with the descendants of freedmen across the nation. Y'all, this is key right here. This is key because you, to me, I don't see a way for number 3 without number 2.
Facts.
At some point, you know, like we are going to have to get away from we got some issues that we got to iron out amongst our tribe, and I'm not talking about any particular cult or anything like that, or anybody that's associated with some of that stuff. I'm talking about just in general, like even outside of that, there's issues with people that's a part of our the freedmen, descendants of freedmen, that we got to make sure we can come together, because guess what, all the fighting and stuff we see, we really ain't got a chance to even fight the racist devils that are the descendants of the enslavers, right? And the descendants of people who want to mask themselves as the enslavers so they can access white privilege, or maintain white supremacy. So, hey, number 2 is very key. And at some point, we're going to have to come, like, I don't know when that point is going to be, but it needs to be sooner than later. We're going to have to come and just have an understanding that we need a change. We need a change in the culture of how we deal with each other, so we can come to the table and, talk about serious issues and keep the main thing, like not get derailed by certain petty differences. And even if you got the petty differences, you understand that, when it comes time to do family business, the family is always going to be first. That's what I see with number 2. But I'm gonna pass it back around.
Brother
I
Ali.
agree. Yeah, I agree with what Josh just said, particularly with family business. And one of the things that I would love in terms of political unification and just unification of the family is, to the point of us having infights. We got to learn how to deal with each other with these infights. You understand? I mean, the political unity is important, but we have to be able to deal with each other with these infights. Learn how to squash beefs with each other as opposed to escalating them, right? Learn that if you have an issue with somebody, why don't you reach out to them, right? Reach out to them and try to squash the issue. If there's really some kind of issue that's deep, don't try to sick the white man on your own brother or your own sister. Don't do that, right? Because if this is family business, then we need to learn how to do that kind of thing so we can move forward. And to the point of the identity, I feel like BTP is doing our job. We're doing our job with resurrecting the legacy of who we are through the identity of freedmen. And it's a beautiful thing that I see through social media that is beginning to catch on. This idea that we actually are the descendants of freedmen, and to be unapologetic about saying that, right? For a long time, people had a problem with saying, like Josh said, descendants of slaves. A lot of people gave a lot of pushback about being descendants of slavery, right? Because technically you can't really be a descendant of slavery, right? We can make an argument for it. We've made arguments on behalf of it, but technically we're descendants of the people who came through slavery, the people who had to endure slavery. And we should never, ever be ashamed to say that, right? Give reverence to those people. Those are our ancestors. We talk about lineage all the time. Your lineage is going to tie you back to those people that came through that institution, those people that persevered in spite of that institution. So we want to revere them, and we want to put them on the pedestal. And the ones who made it to the other side of 1865 and are known as the freedmen, that's who we got to recognize. We got to recognize those people. We don't need to not recognize them and make up all of these new contrivances about being descendants of slavery and all of that kind of stuff. We know who we are. The government knows who our people are. It was well documented. Freedmen's Bureau, Freedman's Bank, right? The European guy, Walter Vaughan, who created his piece for the pensions for freedmen, right? So it's well documented in history who our people are. We don't need any new name. We're the descendants and the sons and daughters of freedmen. I just want to say that.
Facts. Yes, Cato Amir, Freedman it is. Brother Logic.
Peace, family. Yes. So, the restoration of the Freedman legacy via identity, right? That identity is so specific. And when you talk about, we during these political pursuits and the reparations discussion, we have all kind of picked up this language saying, we are our own tribe, right? And we are our own tribe, right? But that history was lost through the lost cause teachings that Naheem was talking about earlier, right? The lost cause teachings, we lost the identity in the name of our tribe. When we was emancipated and we came out of the slavery system, right? We came out of that as freedmen, right? We was emancipated and freedmen. We was our own tribe at that point, the tribe of freedmen, right? There was a tribe of a new people who was came into the political space, came into the social space. We were a new tribe of people in this country participating in political activity at the first time, but we lost that tribal identity. We lost that tribal connection. You understand? So now we were the once lost tribe. We were, and through the education system and various acts of murder and different things of that nature, we became a lost tribe. So now in the search for ourselves, like Brother Naheem introduced earlier in the program, we went to Africa. We went all over the place. Some people went to Mexico and some people went everywhere trying to find where their tribe is. But we are here today to tell you that we are now the lost and found tribe of freedmen. You understand? So we were once lost, but now we're found. We know what our specific identity is. We know what our tribe is, and we know the name. The government knows the name. It's on legislation. It's on government programs. There was banks and money put into this thing. There was infusion of capital, and it was a complete understanding of who the repair was for, there was a complete understanding of who we were, right? So now we in the midst of all this confusion, now we have to reclaim that self-identity again and understand we are the tribe of freedmen. You understand? We're the descendants of freedmen. And I just want to read this piece because it goes well with what Naheem was talking about. He was saying that things were bad when we were in slavery, chattel slavery. When we were on the plantation, things were horrible. But things got worse, right? After slavery, right? We went from private bondage, being the property of one white man or one white family, to being going into public subjugation, where we essentially were the slaves and the property of all white people. You understand? With the black codes and the kind of through legislation, they kind of like made us submit to white people, no matter who you were. You didn't have no ownership. So the hate and the venom was in the legislation. But let's look at the behavior, right? I'm going to read something out of called The Red Record by Ida B. Wells, right? The Red Record by Ida B. Wells. This is what she said. It actually captures what Naheem said about the difference in the treatment and why things became violence. And just real quick, listen to what she said, right? It said, beginning with the emancipation of the Negro, the inevitable result of unbridled power exercised for 2.5 centuries by the white man over the Negro began to show itself in acts of conciseless outlawry. During the slave regime, the Southern white man owned the Negro body and soul. It was his master. It was his interest to dwarf the soul and preserve the body. Understand what they're saying? It was in his interest, financial interest, to dwarf the soul and preserve the body, right? Vested with unlimited power over the slave to subject him to any and all kinds of physical punishment, the white man was still restrained from such punishment as tended to injure the slave by abating his physical powers and thereby reducing his financial worth. While slaves were scourged mercilessly and in countless cases inhumanely treated in other respects, still the white owner rarely permitted his anger to go so far as to take a life, which would entail upon him a loss of several $100s. The slave was rarely killed He was too valuable. It was easier to quit as effective for discipline or revenge to sell him down south. But emancipation came, and the vested interests of the white man in the Negro's body were lost. The white man had no right to scourge the emancipated Negro. Still less has he a right to kill him. But the Southern white people had been educated so long in the school of practice in which might makes right that they disdained to draw strict lines of action in dealing with the Negro. In enslaved times, the Negro was kept subservient and submissive by the frequent and severity of the scourging. But with freedom, a new system of intimidation came into void. The Negro was not only whipped and scourged, he was killed. So then we have the horror story of what we have explained many times on this show and what produced the heroic efforts and and what our people, this is why our people are so great, because during the act of all of this violence, right, our tribe of people became statesmen, became magistrates. And through the face of all this outright violence where they could kill you right in the street, the most courageous people in the history of the world were here making laws, fighting back. That soul, that spirit, that mentality, that mental state is what we have to go back to. We have to go back to and reclaim the minds in the state of mind of our freedmen forefathers so that we can have that strength. We can have that type of commitment and understanding of what needs to be done to get us to where we want to be. So the Freedman legacy is our ancestral legacy and our birthright inheritance to take that torch and take it to the next level. So that's what I got to say about that.
Definitely, definitely. You know, I use this image in the background when I'm live. Brother Grimm, did you want to speak on this image?
Peace. And I wanted to speak to this on this image. Yes, sir. Because a lot of people they see this image and they don't really realize and understand what this image is. This right here is the lithograph of the sons and daughters of the freedmen. It was an original painting made that is referred to by the name of the 15th Amendment. And I basically wanted to break it down for everybody and see these people were speaking in certain sciences and codes and things of that nature and basically breaking down what it is. And this lithograph of our people, I think is a little bit more to it. It may be cut off a little bit, but I just wanted to break it down real briefly. And well, I'm give me 1 second. I'm gonna pull up maybe a bigger image of it, so when we go along to break it down, everybody will understand what it is. At the very, very top of it, you know, they have the American flag, because the American flag is our flag. We fought for it. We know when we talk about the Civil War, we talk about Reconstruction. You know, we have the founding of America, but the war and Reconstruction was actually the second founding of America. So the American flag is our flag. At the very, very top, that's probably cut off on the one that you have up on the screen. You know, we have Martin R. Delaney, Hiram Revels, and another politician whose names escape me. But if y'all go down to I mean, if you can make it smaller so I can see the pictures. Yes, sir. So if you go down,
I'm gonna blow it up, right? So let me know which side you want me to go to. You want me to go to the
leave it on that side, the other side.
Cool.
Right. So at the very top of that, you see a freedman holding up a copy of the Emancipation Proclamation, which was the basically the writing of Abraham Lincoln that assisted in freeing the slaves. Below that, what we have is what we call the image of fraternalism, or the image of fraternity. And in this part of the lithograph, these men basically represent the African American fraternal orders of Odd Fellowship and Freemasonry, which basically served as the basically the glue. So I'm not gonna beat around the bush. Some of y'all may not understand it, but the craft of Freemasonry and Odd Fellowship and things of that nature, you know, people be talking about Egypt and the mystery system, but for us as the freedmen, basically the craft of Freemasonry or Prince Hall, that's our mystery system.
Woo.
And basically you have a copy of the scripture at the bottom, also the picture of Abraham Lincoln. The bottom of that, you have the children going to school, because basically before the freedmen took over the government, they had no public school system. So it was the freedmen with the help of the radical Republicans that basically helped to aid and assist in establishing the public school system in the South, not only for children of the slaves or the children of the freedmen, but also for the poor descendants of so-called white people, right? So with that being said, you go over there. Basically, what you have is religious society and cordial society, where we have basically freedmen. We are able to be in marriage, make contracts. You understand what I'm saying? And be respected. You understand? In society, right? That we beginning to raise up and be dignified. Where you see the sisters or the daughters in the picture, right, with the beautiful, elegant gowns, something that they wasn't wearing when they were in bondage.
That's
and
right.
You can roll over to the right, brother.
Yeah, this next one, the words at the bottom says, the ballot box is open to us. So that's a brother. That's a brother voting right there in his top hat.
Right. Yep. So he dignified and he's actually voting, and that's how they had more politicians in the Reconstruction South and in the Reconstruction of the South than they had for many, many generations after that, after they took over. And here, you know, we have freedmen and so-called European Americans or white Americans both serving in government, right? If you could continue,
legislators.
Legislators, exactly.
Right.
All of this is legislators. If you go ahead and scroll up, brother.
Look
man.
at John Brown.
John Brown.
That's right.
Right.
That's right.
Who was a sacrificial lamb for the lost found tribe of freedmen.
That's right. Let me just say real quick.
Sir. Yes, sir.
If you have white people connected to what you're doing as reparationists, as freedmen, or whatever name you choose to use, and they're not on that John Brown energy fighting for you against the powers that be that look like them, then they're not really for you, and I don't know what you're doing. So I just wanted to add that in there.
And I want to say something too.
Yes.
If you have some of those that are like John Brown, that's just as loud as you, that's fighting. You know, John Brown was louder. John Brown was louder than a lot of folks. You know, a lot of black folks. Obviously, a lot of black folks, you know, was enslaved, and you know, the freedmen or the people that were emancipated or whatever the case may be, the freedmen of that time, you know, were not in a position, you know, they could be killed. But John Brown could have been, he was killed, you know. Let's just keep it official. John Brown was outspoken. John Brown wasn't playing. He was killing people. He wasn't playing no kind of games. He understood that it was going to take war. He was trying to spark the war that was going to end slavery. You know,
I mean, he really did spark it.
Yeah.
He really did spark it. Yeah. So if y'all not coming with that John Brown energy, I don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, brother.
We need more, real quick, we need more John Browns. And if it's somebody that's looking like that, they moving like that, we don't need to tear them down. We don't need to just say white shut up, because guess what? It was if more of our people would have helped John Brown and would have came through,
Oh yeah.
it would have been a lot better.
Yeah,
That situation would have turned out a lot different. So I just wanted to say that.
That's a fact. Which one you going to next, Grim?
Yeah, go ahead and stay right there. I have a different version from you, but right above that, what Brother Josh was just breaking that down.
All right. Let me just say one thing, because the version I have, there's a family right here. Let me see if I can blow it up, and I'll let you go. But I gotta highlight that because this is powerful. It says freedom unites the family circle.
Right.
Freedom unites the family circle. So this is a father and husband sitting with his wife and mother to their 2 children as he reads to them.
That's right.
Like, this is something that y'all hear us talk about all the time. Family leads this thing. And you have people trying to push back on us, calling us homophobic because we talking about family has to lead this thing. The black family at that. And I just had to get that out. Go ahead, Brother Grim.
Right. And indeed, you know, and I mean, if you got your thing and that's the way you living your life in that regards, we not mad at you for being who you are. If you feel that's what you want to be, we not homophobic. But at the same time, don't be trying to be mad at us because we want to preserve the traditional family. Go out and do you, but don't hate me. You understand? Don't hate me because I'm the traditional man that want a traditional woman and traditional children. I'm not hating you for you, who you are. See, we get that mixed up, but I'm not going to go off on a tangent. But here we have the brothers. If you can blow that up a little bit. And I want to read those words under the picture with the Civil War soldiers.
All right, hold on. Can you see it?
Right. Yes, sir. It says we will protect our country as it defends our rights. You understand? So you have the Civil War soldiers in there. And if you look deep in there, I'm not going to go too deep in it, but the one that the copy that I have, you have the Civil War soldiers with fezzes on.
I was going to ask you. I was going to say, what's that they got on their heads, Grim?
Right. That's
because, like, hey, I had some people recently making fun of my fez.
Right.
Really recently, like less than a week ago. But it looked like my ancestors was wearing fezes in this picture right here.
Ain't that something?
Ain't that something? The Freedmen.
And in that picture, there's I know Grim is going to get to it, but there are more people wearing fezzes. But I'll let Grim break that down.
Mm-hmm.
Indeed, so they wearing fezzes because you know the fez is not only a religious end, but it's also tied to the other side of that thing that we showed to of fraternalism. That is the hat or the headdress of those in fraternity or fraternalism. Now, you know, my image has it where they actually show it with the actual more red of a color, which was the original piece. They got variations of this lithograph. But let me go on because I don't want to take up the time. If you can go to the middle, because it also tells the same thing, just in case people say that we BSing around, it'll also show you fezzes again.
There we go. I mean, so the people that's making fun of my fez that are supposed to be descendants of the freedmen mock their own ancestors because they don't really know this history right here.
Blow that picture up, bro, because at the bottom of that picture, there's some words underneath it. Tells you about the celebration, and then blow it up so they can see clearly that those are fezzes on those brothers' heads.
That's right. That's right.
And we not talking about Morocco. We not talking about anywhere in the Middle East. We talking about in our United States of America. And this is the celebration of the 15th Amendment. May 19th, 1870.
Oh, yeah.
Y'all follow what I'm saying? Yeah. So we have another school of our brothers and sisters, and we not gonna get too much. They say that the 13th, the 14th, and the 15th Amendment is not needed for the salvation of our people. That's an error.
It's so funny. I got something I'm going to read a little bit later out of Mercer Baradaran's book, The Color of Money, pertaining to the 15th Amendment and the Freedmen's Bureau. But let's get through this one, and we'll get to that.
Right, and in there you see also, if you can if you can go to the left a little bit, the brothers on the horses with sashes, you know, the freedmen in dignified dress, with the other freedmen behind them that was returning from the war, the troops. You understand what I'm saying? Get you a copy, because I'm gonna get a real big copy when I find out where to get it, put it on my wall as a freedman, as a descendant of freedmen. You understand what I'm saying? So turn it back over to you, brother. I'm done.
All right, definitely, man, definitely. I mean, look, this is who we are. This is who we are, man. Let me pull this one brother's comment up. He said, facts. We found a black and white picture of great-grandfather in his youth, and he has a fez. He apparently never said he was a Moor, but said the fez was our culture. So, you know, that's just for those that try to make fun of my fez, and it is what it is, though. You know, it is what it is. We got the history on our side. We got the truth on our side. We got the facts on our side. We got the ancestral energy of our freedmen ancestors on our side. So we're not worried about none of that stuff right there. So who wanna go in? Because I want to pull some stuff up in a minute. From
number three on the list.
Let's pull the list back up.
Reparations for the descendants of freedmen. Now, that's what I mean, it's number 3 is closer to the center, right? And I would say that's at the center of what we're doing. That's at the center of, look at Ali. Yeah.
I ain't put my fez. Hold on.
It's Freedman fez.
I ain't put my fez on it so long.
God.
Hey, I forgot. Hey, I forgot Ali had his fez. Oh man, if I'd have known you was gonna do that, I'd have dusted my fez off and threw it on real quick. Right. Yeah, go ahead, Josh.
Yeah, he got that Freedman fez on.
You know.
So but yeah, reparations for the descendants of freedmen is at the center of what we're doing. And reparations, again, we're gonna need our people to come together and unify and become just like I give the example of the pencils. You can snap a pencil easy, but if you take like 10, 20 pencils, you can't snap them pencils like that. It's real hard. And it's the same way, when we come up here with just a little weak energy for reparations with a little small group, and most of our people are not energized and united around that, they can just get snapped, but we're gonna have to activate more people, to get behind this fight of reparations. Most of our people understand and believe that we should get it. Well, believing that we should get it, and it being on the tip of your tongue in every conversation, and being at the front of your advocacy, so you're not on any other lane ahead of reparations. You're not on the whatever religious lane that you're on. You're not on the whatever Democrat or Republican, conservative, liberal lane. You're not on the LGBT lane. You're not on whatever these different lanes or different off ramps that are there to advocate for. And I'm saying that because what happens is a lot of times we get off on these off ramps, and we put that before the fight for our group in total, before reparations and the path to justice. There's a road that we gotta ride on. as a destination that we got to get to, and it's a road that's going to lead to that destination. But a lot of times we get off on different exits, thinking that we can avoid the fight, thinking that we can avoid having to ride on a road that's filled with potholes and all kind of wild people with road rage is trying to shoot you, you know. But at the end of the day, if we're going to get to this destination, everybody got to get on the road. And if we need to get off on the off ramp, we get off on the off ramp and we handle business. We get back on the road, because we need a whole lot of people to show up at this destination. We need a whole lot of people. Now, right now, reparations, we have a bill. For those of you who don't know, I imagine the vast majority of y'all that on this broadcast know that there's a hearing on a reparations study bill that's going to be happening with the Congress, February the 17th at 10 a.m. And this bill, we've been talking about it for a year at least. We got a lot of problems with that bill. That bill it needs revision. It's called HR 40. This is a bill. It's not a reparations bill. It's not a bill saying we're going to get to 10. We're going to get 10 to 12 trillion minimum. It's a bill that says we're going to study proposals, reparations. And we're not going to go through the bill tonight, but we just understand that yes, there is there is a hearing that's going to be happening. The hearing is not a vote on the bill. I don't believe there's going to be a vote on the bill anytime soon, but this is a bill that we are opposing pieces to. But hey, look, whether we oppose it or not, it appears that it's going to go forward as is. So we just got to be prepared for what that means. But I will say this lastly, there is value in having a commission, because a commission helps you use the findings from that commission to build a national awareness and national support for a reparations program. Now hey, look, man, when you read through that bill, though, it's a whole lot that is not really solidified in what the findings are going to be. So
we're going to do a breakdown on it before the 17th. We'll do a breakdown on it before the 17th. Brother, definitely, Brother Logic. Did you want to share anything before because I got some stuff I want to pull up, so I'm going to let everybody kind of go through theirs first. I want to pull up some of the Freedmen.
Just let me know where we're going.
I mean, I want to get into some of the Freedman history. Okay. All right, Dr. Lily, look, let me pull up Dr. Lily's comment. She said, go forward as is. I thought you said there was not a vote. Can you clarify what is the purpose of the February 17th meeting? They're having another hearing on HR 40 like the one they had in 2019. So we're going to do a breakdown on it before the 17th, sis, so we could just give a full analysis. I don't want to derail what we're doing right now. So I just want to get into some of this Freedman history out of Mercer Baradaran's book, The Color of Money. Matter of fact, let me see. Hold on, y'all. I want to get the whole name of the book. And I just messed that up. Yeah, one of y'all can take it over while I'm pulling that up.
All right. Well, we still got time. I'll say this. This is my opinion about HR 40, right? And we talk about being freedmen. Let me make that connect for everybody, right? Freedmen, statesmen. We did several programs, told you that the first order of our business as freedmen in this country was to secure democratic representation, right? That's the only way that we're going to get a pathway paved or a road paved to reparations. You understand?
And we don't
legislation to do that.
I just want to say, when we say democratic representation, we're not talking about the Democratic Party per se. We're talking about the process.
If that got to be explained, we got a
Yeah,
lot of education to do.
Yeah,
We're
got to be
about
explained.
Democracy. All right. I'm not talking about the Democrats, because you already got to know that the Democrats weren't even the friends of the freedmen during the time of emancipation, or weren't even posing as the friends. They were the Confederates and they're the Republicans of today, but the Confederates of yesterday. So when I say democratic representation, I'm talking about the process of democracy. You understand? Majority vote to get representation. If you don't understand how the democratic process works, you won't get the proper representation. So that has to do with all things like the people that are going to be called in to make statements at HR 40. If the democratic process isn't done right, you're not going to get the right representation. You understand? And so reparations is a legacy that we have to fight and secure for. But we can't lose our mind over every little thing, and you have to be more creative and you're more imaginative than to just have one linear tunnel vision way, right? So now you're not even working on anything else except for this. We got to be politically multitaskers. You understand? We have to be able to multitask politically. We don't have time to be freaking out over this one little thing. HR 40 is getting another hearing, right? Same situation that it had in 2019 when it got a hearing. They want to build awareness so that and it's a new Congress has just been sworn in. They want to bring this hearing up in front of Congress, bring the witnesses in so they can make their testimonies and make the case to build the energy up to try to get this bill out of committee. You understand? It has a lot of work to do after that. It has to get voted out of committee, go through the committee amendment process first, get voted out of committee, make it to the House, get called onto the docket whenever the speaker feels that it's in the order, get called put on the docket, get a debate. You don't know how long it's going to be debated. Then if they want to kick it back to committee for amendments, they'll kick it back. And or if they come, they amend it on they make their recommendations. If they pass it, then it got to go to the Senate, and then it got to get signed. There's so much work that needs to be done. We don't have time to just be freaking out about it. This whole time that was 2019. We could have created energy to put a pressure on Joe Biden, since y'all caught up in the president, to make an executive commission. You could have beat him to the punch because you don't got to do all that bureaucracy if you want a commission done. Or you could have been busy crafting competitive legislation that detailed the program and project and the construction of reparations that you wanted to present that and get that champion. But you're so focused on this thing. Oh my God, HR 40. HR 40 has problems. There's problems with all legislation. That's why people are always writing shit so that they can say, nope, my legislation is better, right? But if instead of just trying to edit it, create an entire bill and get someone to champion that's better. Because there's going to be a lot of things that you're going to waste your time with trying to just say, let's edit. We know what the type of Congress that we're dealing with. A lot of the problems that we're worried about are going to be handled by the opponents of reparations anyway. When you talk about what the criteria that they have is too loose, and you already know they don't want to give it to us. So they damn sure ain't finna give it to all black folks. They're going to enforce the criteria by proxy, by default, just because they want to give it to the smallest group as possible. So we don't have to freak out over that. Use your mind and your great minds to do something more and do other stuff and be politically multitasking the whole time. We got a lot of work to do, and HR 40 still has a long way to go.
Indeed. So we're going to get it, man. That was a whole live stream worth of information right there. We might not need to do the live stream on HR 40 after that. That was a whole soundbite of fire right there. So this is from, I'm going to just run through some of these, man, and we could touch on them as we go along. This is out of Mercer Baradaran's book, The Color of Money, The Color of Money, Black Banks and the Racial Wealth Gap. That's the full title. I had to get that right. I'm coming from the Kindle version, so the pages on Kindle always appear off than the pages in the actual book for whatever reason. So I'm going to read. It says, after emancipation, Black communities formed hundreds of mutual aid societies to work toward income self-sufficiency. They set up charities to take care of the poor and sick and to educate each other. So we see a little bit of that in the picture that we had up that Brother Grimm was breaking down. It says, and I quote, "We have progressed a century in a year," said one freedman. It's a powerful statement. "We have progressed a century in a year," said one freedman. You see that language, that name, freedman, is important. During the first year of freedom in 1866, a Negro convention held in Greene County, North Carolina, suggested that Blacks could raise their economic status by creating joint stock companies and patronizing Black businesses. So we see that the idea of do for self is rooted in something, is just rooted in something over 200 years too late, right? So let me get to this next one real quick, because it touches on that very thing. It says, the idea of community self-help, valuable as it was when there was no other choice, has been deployed cynically at several pivotal historical moments to thwart other, more direct answers to the racial wealth gap. The Freedmen's Bureau, for example, initially proposed to give free slaves an allotment of the land their labor had enriched. Instead, they got a bank. Northern industrialists came out in support of Booker T. Washington's plan for a segregated Black economy, even as other Black leaders were pushing for full integration. The New Deal programs that would have sent aid to build housing in the urban ghetto were instead used to create the white suburbs that reinforced, hold on, let me pull this next part up, to reinforce the perpetuated racial segregation for the rest of the century. And it's, no, hold on, my bad, y'all. Hold on. Oh yeah, no, that was right. I'm just trying to give y'all a little history of the Freedmen's Bureau Bank. One of y'all can take it over. I'm having some little.
Let me say this about do for self, right? Let me say this. I love to do for self, but it's harder to do for myself when you're steady robbing me of all the shit that I done built. You understand? I've been doing for self. I build for self. We create for self, and then you come and the enemies burn the shit down. They take it away. So we ain't never had no problem doing for self. But if I don't have the proper resources and the things that I do build is raided, scourged, burnt to the ground, and it's sanctioned by government, how can I sustain self? So we don't got no problem doing for self, but we can't become self-reliant if I'm locked out of ownership and I'm not allowed to own nothing. And the things that I build are attacked by the government. You understand? The government itself has attacked our tribe of people. So we have always done for self, but a small tribe of people cannot fight the United States government. We do not have the ability to do that. So when the government says, all right, and we demand the government, right, say, look, we are going to do what we are supposed to do for our citizens, especially this unique, special group of citizens who should be the most elite class in the country. Right? Because of the equity and the value that we put into America. You subtract that equity and that value, America's a third world country. You understand? The brother just said, we created 100 years of progress in 1 year. We are miracle workers. These are divine people that our ancestors were. 100 years of progress in 1 year, in one calendar year. Who do you know that can do that? There has been no emancipated people Even the serfs got more than we got because we got nothing. The serfs got 3 acres of land apiece when they got emancipated, and they ain't make nowhere near the type of progress in Russia that we did. You understand? We made more progress than any emancipated group, and we had nothing. We was emancipated into homelessness and poverty. You understand? And joblessness. You see? But we did for self. We are the poster people for doing for self. But we have been the most attacked and the most consistently attacked people in the history of this country. That is the problem. So it's a combination of us doing for self and the government working for the people. See, we don't have a problem doing our part. The government has to do its part. The government is by the people, for the people. But what people are they being for? Because they haven't been being for us. We had 7 years of what Du Bois called the 7 mystical years, right? Where this type of work, that 1 year that equaled 100 years of progress, we was doing stuff like that for 7 years. Magnificent miracle makers as our ancestors. You understand? We were making this stuff is not no fairy tale. Actual miracles. You understand? We were working miracles. You understand? In the face of the most outright violent times that you can think of. So understand, we do for self all the time, but our job now is to make the government do for the people.
Yes, indeed, brother Bahi. That came from Mercer Baradaran's book, the Color of Money, and I got it from the Kindle version, and the page numbers are always off on Kindle than what they are in the actual book. So, but it's coming from that book. It's coming from that book. So let me just run through a little bit more of these. I ain't gonna go through them all and get everybody to give some commentary on this information right here because it's powerful. It is our Freedman information. She cites in her book, despite consistent bipartisan support and a few publicized success stories, there was never any evidence that the design would work. Talking about this banking institution, this Freedman's Bank. The very circumstances that created the need for these banks, discrimination and segregation, permanently limited their effectiveness and would ultimately cause their demise. The catch-22 of Black banking is that the very institution needed to help communities escape deep poverty inevitably became victims of that same poverty. Blacks were poor, and due to segregated housing, their homes were less. See, what she's doing is she's tying in a history that you could run a straight line from this time of that we're living in today, whether it's now, right, to the 50s and the 60s, all the way back to the times of slavery. So let's go to the next slide real quick. Let's pull this one up. It says a post-war struggle was being waged over economic control of the South. The Freedmen's Bureau could not survive the violence and the chaos that followed Appomattox, and thus promises of land and equality vanished. As Du Bois said of Reconstruction, the slave when free stood a brief moment in the sun, then moved back again towards slavery. President Andrew Johnson, the accidental president who assumed the office after Lincoln's assassination, joined the white Southern backlash and rolled back Lincoln's promises. He thoroughly undermined the Freedmen's Bureau bill, including the land grant, and fought. Let me pull up the next one. I don't know. All right, well, y'all give some commentary to that. My slides are a little jumbled, man.
Yeah.
But
let me say, about that, because I call Andrew Johnson the beast of revelations. That's what I call him. I call him the beast of revelations because, and I say that, and that's just me. I think that he had a hand in the assassination of President Abraham Lincoln, because after that, you know, and man, let me say, it's amazing. People probably say we talking about stuff in the past, but it's amazing how all of this stuff is basically actually from the 1800s is rolled into what we dealing with right now in the year 2020, 2021, you know? And you know, like for example, let me talk about Andrew Johnson. So he undercut everything that Lincoln was doing, and he was an advocate or whatever for this whole states' rights thing and this states' right argument that they make. And all of these same states' right arguments and all that stuff ain't new. That ain't no Reagan stuff. And that stuff is all tied back into Reconstruction. Even when these Republicans, when they always say, yes, we believe in small and limited government and all of that crap they be talking about, all that stuff is tied into Reconstruction, because the reason why they believe in this so-called small government, if you will, is because that allows them to keep their occupied status and territory over the actual descendants of freedmen, and stopping us from getting wealth, because a lot of our wealth back in the Reconstruction was intimately connected to the federal government and us obtaining the lands that, of course, that we never obtained, and to maintaining our life status, that we were politicians, we were working for the government. And you'll see that the smaller that the Republicans, when they came into office, the smaller that they made government, the more disenfranchised our people are. What y'all think this war on the post office about? Y'all think that shit is about mail? Y'all know how many middle-class families were made by the United States Postal Service? The United States Postal Service or whatever is one of the original institutions for the formation of this government, and they want to destroy it. Why? It's all tied back to the free.
Indeed. Brother Logic, you wanted to read something?
Absolutely. I'm so glad Grimm brought up Andrew Johnson, because there's I'm going to read something from the book From Here to Equality by Kirsten Mullen and Sandy Darity. And it really kind of captures what Grimm was just talking about. We talking about this beast of revelation, right? And he was a beast. He was a hell of a beast. And peep this, right? Right. This is page 224 and From Here to Equality, right? It says, Vice President Johnson's endorsement. He was then still vice president now, right? Lincoln was still alive. Vice President Johnson's endorsement of Lincoln's decision to let the Wade Davis bill die may have been another foreshadowing of his preference for the Confederates over the freedmen. Vice President Johnson had entreated Lincoln to punish the rebels. In a speech given after the fall of Richmond, which signaled the end of the war, he sounded like a radical Republican when he said, I would arrest the high-ranking Confederates. I would try them. I would convict them. Johnson seemed to recognize fleetingly the need for what we call deconfederatization. Death is too easily a punishment. Treason must be made odious, and traitors must be punished and impoverished, their social power broken. They must be made to feel the penalty of their crimes, right? He's spitting, right? This is a tricky devil. But peep this. But within 1 month of his swearing in ceremony, President Johnson, largely acting independently of Congress, because Congress was in recess at this time, right, implemented a fundamentally divergent Reconstruction plan, calling for the elimination of the loyalty oath quota and weakening the state's obligation to protect the new liberated status of the ex-slaves. That's the first thing that was his day one priority. He ain't even been sworn in a month. So you see the plan? So that goes to that kind of makes Grimm's hypothesis of him being connected to the assassination. It kind of makes it really mean something. Who does that? You understand? He was so radically engaged in supporting of the penalties and punishment for traitors and treason, and then come back and put them all in power. If you watched our program, you know we've read some of the other things that he's done, and he is a hell of a man, and that's no pun intended.
Right. And you know, man, and I want to say this real quick, like the injustices of the deliberate sabotage of the Freedmen's Bureau in the Reconstruction era, man, that junk is responsible for everything from the slaughtering of our ancestors, Jim Crowism, the civil rights movement of 1960s and 70s, all the way up to the damn crack babies of the 80s and the 90s, the gerrymandering of the voters districts, voting districts, them not giving us proper loans, devaluation of our properties, and things of that nature in our neighborhood. All of that stuff is tied from the sabotage of Reconstruction, man.
And hell, there wouldn't be no need for a reparations movement if Reconstruction wasn't overthrown, because we wouldn't even be here right now. So what he's saying is perfectly right.
And we talk about reparations for slavery. You understand? We don't even talk about reparations for the failed Reconstruction or the deliberately sabotaged Reconstruction, because that caused all of this stuff. Because those people, and we talk about Andrew Johnson, but another person that we need to talk about is Rutherford B. Hayes and the Compromise.
That's right.
Because that's what basically what ended up happening is that all of those black people who took over the governments of the South and was serving, a lot of those people were basically forced out of the government, not by a vote of a democratic vote, but by violence. You know, I belong to Oscar. I used to belong to Oscar James Dunn Lodge, and that, you know, some of the elders basically used to say, well, we don't believe that Oscar James Dunn, who was the lieutenant governor of Louisiana during Reconstruction, we don't believe he died of natural causes. We believe that he was assassinated because he died under mysterious circumstances, you know. And this whole Freedman thing, this whole Reconstruction thing, like Logic was saying, we can't get no reparations if we shouldn't even be talking about reparations if we can't deal with what they did in that particular period of time. And that's why this Freedmen's history is so important, y'all.
I got something for Brother Ali, because we was talking about the 15th Amendment earlier. Based on that picture, I want to get my brother Ali's breakdown on this passage out of Mercer Baradaran's book, where she's citing Du Bois, who says, according to Du Bois, quote, the Freedmen's Bureau died and its child was the 15th Amendment. And then it goes on to say, however, because freedom was contained only in constitutional law and not experienced in the Southern economy, these rights were hollow and vulnerable. The legal right to participate in democracy could not overcome the legal prohibition against engaging in the free market or the gaping gap in wealth. What are your thoughts on that passage, Brother Ali, with Du Bois saying the Freedmen's Bureau died and its child was the 15th Amendment?
Well, basically, not just that particular line, but the whole thing in general. What they're referring to is the fact that our people were not really able to experience Americanism and the full rights of American citizenship, everything, the rights and privileges and everything else that goes along with American citizenship. So basically, even though it was codified in the 15th Amendment, you know, and the Reconstruction Amendments themselves, the rights of citizenship, the people were not able to actually live that out, you know. And that goes even back to, you know, we often talk about the Declaration of Independence. It goes all the way back to that. You know, our people were never able to actually experience unmolested the principles that are actually the foundation of this thing called the United States. Never able to really fully access that in the way that so-called white people have been able to. So basically, that's what I get out of that whole passage, is that, yeah, it was written in the 15th Amendment, but it wasn't really actualized for the people.
And that brings up a real point, because I want to jump in real quick and say that, because Grimm hit it. You just talked about it when Naheem introduced it. It told you what the problem was, and we have said this on the show. I've said this on almost every program. The problem is what Grimm was hitting at, talking about states' rights, is nothing new. This country was built and formed on the concept of a federalist government. That's why it is the United States. You have 50 state governments, right, who share power with the central government. So because the 15th Amendment was passed, it was never realized in our lives, because we don't live in Washington, D.C. You understand? We live in Mississippi and Alabama and Georgia and Louisiana and Texas and Oklahoma and all over. You understand? But we have never, and our ancestors were wise. The first thing they attempted to do, and were very successful until they pulled the troops out of the South, and then we started seeing these mobs slaughter us in large scores, was to secure states' rights, because that's the only thing and the only way that you can make sure you get what you're supposed to get in this country. States' rights is the most powerful ability to secure your future and your political will in this country that's a federalist nation. If you don't have no states' rights, it don't matter what they pass in Washington. The state's gonna gobble you up every goddamn time. And we've seen that all throughout history, from Reconstruction. You understand? We didn't have nobody in place, not our own fault. But when the provisional governors was put in, they created the black codes. When Andrew Johnson, the beast of revelations, like Brother Grimm said, put the governors back into place, they put their homies back into place. They devils back in place, and they created the black codes for us, which it didn't matter at that particular time, because what it was on the federal books, because the state laws made us public subjects. You understand? So if we don't have no state power, it don't matter what happens in Washington, D.C. You better get your mind focused. If you don't have no governors, it don't matter who the damn president is. You understand? Because you do not live in Washington, D.C.
And remember, we were just talking about how in Georgia, some of the people are not receiving the extra $300 that was put in place through the federal government to add on to supplement the
That's crazy.
Unemployment benefit. So people haven't been getting the extra $300, and that has to do obviously with the governor's activity. Something happened in Louisiana years ago when Obama was president, and what's the guy's name that was the governor of Louisiana?
Jindal. Bobby Jindal.
Bobby Jindal. He didn't allow the Obamacare to come into his state. So a lot of the people were not able to benefit from that particular aid that was put in place by the federal government there. So because he was the governor. So to Logic's point, that's very important. States being able to control the governments of the states is very, very important.
Brother Josh, I want to read something. And then I want you to come in, and then I want Grimm to come in. We just going, ride. I'm not going to go no more into Mercer's book, but I think we can save that for another program to get into the what happened to us. I just wanted to share some of what she's touching on in this particular chapter, and it basically showed that the Freedmen's Bank was just something we put our money into. And then these devils, I gotta call them what they are, use the money. It was only a savings bank. You couldn't get loans, couldn't do nothing. You just put your money in there. I believe it in accrued interest, and they were using the money that we couldn't even use to fund and invest in projects like railroads, et cetera, et cetera. So I want to read something real quick as we get back into the spirit of Freedmen. Let's get to the name of this article. Racist Litter, Randall Kennedy. The second founding, how the Civil War and Reconstruction remade the Constitution by Eric Foner. Let me see if that's large enough on the screen. I have to blow this up a little bit. All right, let me scroll down here. It says, speak of the devil, Lincoln's successor, Andrew Johnson, was a fierce racist who militarily opposed giving African Americans an equal legal status to whites. He supported the ending of slavery, but wanted blacks to be confined to a subordinate caste. That is one of the reasons radicals in the Republican Party, Lincoln's party, despised Johnson, who was a Democrat, and attempted to remove him from office by impeachment. Johnson survived. He escaped conviction by one vote, but the Republicans succeeded in enacting civil rights legislation despite his opposition. The Republicans also put the former Confederate states under military rule, stipulating that they would not be allowed to become self-governing and rejoin the Union until they permitted black men to participate in politics on the same basis as white men. The pariah states acceded with remarkable results. Quote, you never saw people more excited on the subject of politics than are the Negroes of the South, end quote. That's key right there, right? Because the sentiment we have now is opposite of that. It continues. One planter observed, they are perfectly wild. Blacks enrolled in organizations such as the Union League, which encouraged political education through speeches and debates. This is something that we don't have today. This is something that we don't have today that's accessible to those of us that grew up in ghettos created by the United States government during the times of redlining. And those times still obviously exist. To continue, it says, they petitioned local authorities. They attended Republican rallies and conventions. They voted and ran for office, even in the face of violent opposition from resentful whites, who were appalled by the prospect of blacks, including former slaves, taking part in governance. Between 1870 and 1877, 16 blacks were elected to Congress, 18 to positions as state lieutenant governors. You heard my brother Logic speaking about the importance of governors earlier on several of our streams. Treasurers, secretaries of state, or superintendents of education, and at least 600 state legislators. Superintendents of education is key because you drive the black or the freedmen superintendents of education out and it gets replaced with lost cause teachings. It says blacks never had decisive control over any state government, not even in Mississippi or South Carolina, where they constituted a majority of voters. But for a short period, they wielded sufficient power in substantial parts of the South to insist on the establishment of public education, laws relatively favorable to workers, debtors, and tenants, and prohibition against various sorts of racial discrimination. I want to hear some of y'all's commentary on that. You know, this article speaks about 1870 through 1877, those 7 golden years, you know, when our people were able to attain this governmental power, right? We heard Killer Mike speak about that. I believe that was at the Revolt conference or summit, but I think he kind of put it in the wrong context. Brother Josh, what is your take on that?
Yeah, man. I think it goes to show you what we would do if we were given the ability to act and engage in politics without the obstruction of racism. It shows you, like, man, it was so powerful when the article said how, you know, we were the most excited about politics. You know, we were the most engaged. And that thing has been beat down throughout the years through misinformation, through, you know, being downtrodden, through being disappointed, and all the things we've gone through. So wonder that we're still here, let alone it being a mystery that why we haven't been, well, we're no longer engaged in politics. Thought I had locked that door. Can you help me out?
Yeah. Yes.
All right. And so, you know what? Hold on. Let me. I got a guest that just popped in my room. My son came in. Hold on. I'm gonna come back to me.
All right. So come on, Grim.
Yeah, peace. What I would like to do, because I know we had like 3 more points, right? You wanted to address those other points?
I mean, if y'all want to address them, sure, we could pull those back up.
Yeah, because I hate to not address those points.
You mean
we dealt with the 3 of them,
You mean on the Freedman philosophy?
On the Freedman philosophy.
Okay, definitely. Go ahead, brother.
Yeah, so where did we leave off? 3, I think it was.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, because I know we winding down on time. I think we had the hour and 30. The 4 points say that holding America accountable for overthrowing Reconstruction, and that's tied into number 3. We have to go point for point for point. And I think the next thing we go do is talk about the violence against freemen, probably on another show, and basically all of the problems, because Logic Man made me kind of really analyze the whole thing about the crack era, because from the 1870s with the compromise of 1877 all the way to 1965, and even before that with the Brown versus the Board of Education, all of that stuff, devaluing black culture, devaluing black families, devaluing black men, devaluing black women, devaluing black, all that tied into that sabotage. So they have to be held accountable for what they did in turning a blind eye to even the private institutions. Because I was talking to a brother today that we will probably interview. We got to talk about the whole private thing too, because I know a lot of this stuff will have to be handled through legislation, but a lot of these son of a guns will have to be sued. A lot of these private institutions, because they fostered that. One of them being the railroad. And I don't know if you all know about the railroad business, because see, that was part of the 1877 compromise, was to get the road built by the former slaves, right? So, people today work for the railroad making nice salaries. All of that stuff is basically tied in to the infrastructure that our ancestors built. So I'm just bringing an example. Some of these people go have to be sued because they played a part where their companies benefited in the long run for playing a part in the devaluing the freemen, but like taking our bodies and our labor to build their wealth. They even had freedmen who were being accused of breaking contracts, and this is a history. They was breaking contracts, and they were basically sold back to involuntary servitude for 1 year, according to what Logic was saying, these local laws. So basically, these southern governments and these states, they weren't adhering to the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment, basically. So that's what I wanted to deal with number 4, and like number 5 talk about reclaiming the former glory of our freedmen forefathers. I mean, we talked about that, man. We did a lot. And then we have to maintain the freedmen legacy. And we doing that, and we will do that through the sons and daughters of the freedmen. And we got to infuse freedmen history into these public schools, man, reversing the narratives of the lost cause teachers, man. I can't say no more than what's already there.
Definitely.
Yeah, something. You was gonna say,
go ahead, Ali, and then Josh jump back in.
Okay. What I was gonna say is just to Grim's point at the very end, the history being taught in school. I think that the history of the freedmen and the history of our people, period, in this country should be taught to all people trying to gain citizenship in this country. It should be a part of the civics test that these people are forced to take as they're looking for citizenship in this country.
That's right.
Because too many people come, and because they don't know anything about this history, they come and they look down on our people. And because it appears that the American way is to look down on our people and try to step on our people, they should know this, and maybe this would actually get them to see our folks in a different light. Listening to the interview that Dr. Darity did with the Japanese American guy, John Tatishi, I think his name is.
Tatishi. Mm-hmm.
He said something very interesting. He was like, I thought I knew African American history, he said, but after I read From Here to Equality, he was like, man, like basically his mind was blown, and he had a whole different light. And he said the same thing that Grim was saying, that he feels that our history needs to be mandatory.
That's right.
In school. Mandatory. I just wanted to say that, but y'all could go in.
Oh yeah, I agree with that 100%. And y'all broke like the last, I don't know, 20, 30 minutes of this program really broke down number 4, which is holding America accountable for the overthrow of Reconstruction. And all the problems in America descend from the sabotage of Reconstruction. Now, maybe some people can read that and say, well, maybe you're saying all of our problems in America descend from the sabotage of Reconstruction. And yeah, that's true. But no, I think the statement as written is true. All of America, all the problems in America descend from the sabotage of Reconstruction. Case in point, Donald Trump presidency, where he incites an insurrection, and then you go on January the 6th and you see that the Confederate flag is flying from the front of the United States Capitol. See, that doesn't happen in an America where Reconstruction is not overthrown. Because the same way that you don't see a Germany where a Nazi flag is flying anywhere. You don't see that. Because they didn't allow the expulsion of Nazism to not happen. Like they made sure that was going to be a thing. They made sure that scourge was never going to happen again. There is no Adolf Hitler High School. There is no Heinrich Himmler Performing Arts Center, or no Goebbels, you know what I'm saying, arena.
That's a fact, brother.
There's no schools. There's no streets. There's no stadiums and statues, memorializing these people and glorifying them. And that's what we have in America. But because you allow that to perpetuate, you bring up a whole set of problems, let alone economic problems. Let's talk about the report that came out, I think it was Citibank, where it said that since just the year 2000, racism and discrimination has cost the U.S. economy, I think it said $16 trillion. Well, I would add to that, not getting reparations probably cost the economy a lot more than that. Because if you think about the creativity that our people have displayed in shaping the culture around the world, where everybody wants to like borrow off of our cultural contributions to be hot, to be popping, that make them feel that they're a part of whatever the most attractive culture is. That's creative. That's a creative contribution. If you think about all the contributions we made through, I mean, not just slavery, but even after that, all the contributions we made in engineering the things that created the wealth of America. Oh, and you think about what America did not experience, because we were never allowed to accumulate or get wealthy. We were never allowed to have wealth and pass down generational wealth. We had never allowed access to opportunity to do these things. So that means like me and you, we might have the greatest idea, the most creative idea, but we're waiting on some, I mean, and this is not 100% always the case, but 9 times out of 10, we're waiting on some access to some capital or some lever that we can pull where we can get access to the networks to even get the type of capital for us to invest in a business to make this like we don't have no family members with no tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of millions of dollars to just throw away on a whim to try an opportunity out, you know, to try to develop a new technology, to come out with a new idea, to pursue these type of things. Imagine if our people had the same level of wealth as white folks, and all across the board, we could come out with like somebody. I was in Clubhouse a few weeks ago, and somebody had a room that says, "Why there would never be why there won't be a black clubhouse." Yeah, that's true. I mean, I won't say never after reparations or whatever the case may be, but if you think about the fact that we have not been in a position to be able to come out with the technology or something like that that can hit massive scale to create a tech billionaire. Where are the tech? Let me just put out a challenge to somebody. Please, somebody tell me, who are the richest black people in tech? Who are the richest descendants of slavery, descendants of freedmen in the tech space? Can somebody identify? Can you think of one? Tell me the one rich a descendants of freedmen in the tech space. Tell me one. Tell me rich descendants of freedmen in any space. Name me 5 that's super rich outside of entertainment and maybe like some stock market investments or something like that. Please, somebody. That's my point. So that's why, like all of America's problems, America will have a lot more things. Would have made a lot more progress if it did right. But that's another thing I'm gonna just say real quick. America doing right by us and not overthrowing Reconstruction means you had to adhere to what the law of your land says in regards to civil rights. When you have to adhere to that, then people can be free to pursue these things and not build it up and then it just get burnt down and torn down and you murder me and you steal it. Like, and if that was the case, if stuff was not stolen, there would be a lot more progress, including like environmental damage, including all kind of stuff, man. So I'm gonna pass it on before I go on too much longer.
Indeed, brother Logic.
Yeah, I want to say a couple of things real quick. Josh really hit some major points, and he really followed up well with what Grim said. I want to tie a couple things in, but I also want to read something. I want to start with Abba. You was talking about the Freedman's Bank. You came out of the Baradaman piece and talking about the Freedman's Bank. I just wanted to come out of From Here to Equality and what Dr. Darity said about the Freedman's Bank, right? And if these things, it really ties into how if Reconstruction wasn't overthrown, the problems that we face today would not exist. And all of America's problems, a lot of ones Josh was talking about with, why don't we have these super uber rich people in tech? And we have a history of great inventors, right? George Washington Carver, Lewis Latimer, so on and so forth, right? But this, right? So first and foremost, we have to understand that, we had the bank, when Naheem was talking about the Freedman's Bank, or the Freedmen's Savings and Trust Company, right? Understand that was brought into existence by an act of Congress, right? House Resolution 613 brought the Freedmen's Bureau, the Freedmen's Bank, and all these different things into existence, right? So what happened to all of that, right? So let's talk about some of that failure, some of that overthrowing that crippled us in our financial capacities, right? See, because this is why reparations is necessary now, because of the theft of wealth and the theft of capital and things of that. So let's look at this. And From Here to Equality, page 257, right, says one of the scandals that had dire consequences for the freedmen was the dissolution of the Freedmen's Saving and Trust Company, also known as the Freedmen's Bank, chartered but not insured by Congress. In 1865, so there was no insurance, no insurance. By Congress in 1865, the financial institution was established to provide a safe repository for the assets the formerly enslaved and their descendants had accumulated. To increase the freedmen's confidence, white bank tellers and branch advisory board members were replaced with blacks. Unfortunately, fraud and embezzlement at the hands of the bank's majority white upper management and board of trustees, coupled with the panic of 1873, led to the bank's closure, leaving more than 61,144 depositors unable to retrieve accounts valued at $2,993,790.68. That is the equivalent of, in today's times with compound interest, depending on what metric you use, to about $31 to $33 billion, right, of stolen wealth just with this one project, right? So a lot of problems. That, understand that during that crucial time of getting your footing in American life, losing that amount of wealth concentrated to just 61,000 people was a destructive act. Most people didn't recover from that. That destroyed families. You understand? Right? So, and then you have other cases where the local banks and states and stuff were actually pillaged and burnt to the ground. So that was what I wanted to add to the Baradaman piece. And what I wanted to just tie into what Josh and what Grimm was saying about how it all is still the same thing. And if you had the freedman's education, you would be able to see what's truly going on in America and tie it all back in and see how it relates to what happened then, because it's the same scenario replaying itself. See, when you don't have a freedman's education, you'll make the mistake into thinking that you hear it in the news media all the time. When Donald Trump was in office, they were saying, "Oh, he's the next Hitler. He's just like Hitler." But he really wasn't. If you would have known your history enough, you would have known that what he is right now and the energy around this man today, even right now, is more like Jefferson Davis. You understand? So he has that Jefferson Davis energy where they want to make this man the president. He riled up that old Confederate language and talk and energy. That wasn't Nazi energy. That didn't happen in America. That's not what this was. That's why you saw Confederate flags dominating gatherings and marches. They were revitalizing the Confederate energy. The Republicans of today are not Republicans, they are Confederates. You understand? But if you don't know Confederate history, because we were never deconfederatized. They had a denazification of Germany where they tore the symbols and the statues down. And I know the brother put in the chat that there's a new Nazi party that's allowed representation in parliament, but that's not what we're talking about. When they denazified, the denazification of Germany eliminated for a long period of time that type of education, those type of symbols, that type of thing, and those people got reparations. So we're not talking about, that's not even comparable to what we're talking about. We never had a deconfederatization of America. Instead, they were glorified, immortalized and memorialized all over the country, not just in the South, but then you go all the way up to everywhere. You got Jefferson Davis High School, you understand? You got Robert E. Lee College and all these different military bases named after this man. You got Confederate flags, not just in front of trailer parks, but on state capitol buildings. You understand? This is a tragedy. And if we don't understand our history, you won't even know that this is even a crime. So we have to be very cognizant and understanding of what our history is, and then know that they want to continue to make Donald Trump the president is the same type of language and energy of the Jefferson Davis, that I don't want to recognize the actual president. This is our president. We would rather succeed from the Union than honor you and honor the Union. We want to confederatize. Peep the language of what the rhetoric is coming out of these groups. And then you understand all of these groups like Proud Boys and all these other groups out here that are doing all this domestic terrorism. That's not Germany shit. That is American Confederate shit. That's when you got the Bushwhackers, the Midnight Marauders, the Red Shirts, the Riflemen's Club, and all these different people, the KKK. These groups were born out of a Confederate philosophy that destroyed our ancestors. So if you don't understand that, you will not be able to make the right connections, and you won't even be able to do what needs to be done in this moment, in this time. So I just wanted to say that to, I thought I had these thoughts when they were saying these things. I wanted to tie these things together. This is an American story that's keep playing itself over. But if you're reading another book, you won't know what to do to be the hero in this story, because our ancestors were the heroes. And if we don't come and do what they did, we won't get anywhere near the results that they got.
That's a fact. Now, I wanted, man, you made me want to go back to the main piece I wanted to read in Baradaran's book. Well, I know we coming. I'm gonna read it, and then I'm gonna let Brother Ali and Grim come in, and then we can start the closing out process, with Brother Josh come back around a lot. So I want to read this though. I want to read this. Let's read this. Let's see. Okay, let's start from here. The land, this is coming from Mercer Baradaran's book, The Color of Money. It says the land General Sherman had given to freed slaves in Georgia was returned to the original owners before full harvest season had elapsed. Like a harvest season didn't even go by before these devils took the land back from our ancestors and gave it back to the devils that was oppressing them. It says the effects were devastating for blacks. Had whites made good on this promise to blacks, claimed Du Bois, it, quote, would have made a basis of real democracy in the United States, end quote. Instead, the agents of the Freedmen's Bureau went to the South to tell the weeping freedmen after their years of toil that their land was not theirs, that there was a mistake somewhere. Union General Oliver Otis Howard, who had the unpleasant task of taking the land back from the freedmen after he had helped administer the order, nevertheless reasoned that the freedmen should have land, but they must pay for their land. You take a broke people, you looted the Freedmen's Bank. What money were they going to buy back this land with? It continues. President Johnson said that the Freedmen's Bill was advantaging blacks over whites and that it was time for blacks to fend for themselves. Now, there's so many interesting things in this excerpt. This last part, I mean, there's so much that we could point out, but the last part, President Johnson said that the Freedmen's Bill was advantaging blacks over whites and that it was time for blacks to fend for themselves. So here we get some of the earliest origins of bootstrapperism, of rugged individualism, right? That let the Negroes, they don't have to have money and land. They'll be able to do for themselves. And in many cases, like my brother Logic says, we are the kings of making a way out of no way. In many instances, we made a way out of no way. There was a recent economist, Matt Brunig. I gotta bring this up. I brought this up on this platform often because he said the same thing when he was debating about closing the racial wealth gap at the mean. He made a similar argument that if you were to close the racial, this is an economist now, if you were to close the racial wealth gap at the mean, then there's a possibility, I'll paraphrase, that blacks would have greater wealth than whites. Like, what? We have so many different areas that we have to catch up, but it is that white fragility, that white backlash, these terms that we get throughout history that informs those who come under this racial classification, this identification of superiority that is whiteness, that makes them say, oh no, we can't ever let the blacks, the inferior title that was placed upon us, rise up to the level of white men in this country. There's this innate fear there, because if this country had done right by us, we would never be importing tech and things from that nature from anywhere. The inventions that were stolen from us alone would have been enough to build up societies in the United States of America, which would have produced more inventors. Man, listen. You know, let me get off my soapbox, brother Ali. Then we'll go to Brother Grimm. Well, what do you have to say about that, or anything pertaining to this Freedman philosophy that we're building on tonight?
Let brother Grimm go in first.
Go ahead, Brother Grimm.
Yeah, you know, I just want to say, man, this was a good show. I'm glad we did this. You know, it was this is important, man. And Logic was using a powerful word too, man. Divine earlier. You know, man, this is a divine and national movement. You know what I'm saying? This is divine and national movement, man. And you know, I want to touch on the spiritual aspect of this thing for a second, man, because you know it's real, man. You know, God and the ancestors, man, are basically like really, you know, looking over this thing. So, you know, for all of the detractors and stuff like that, man, who spitting venom and fire and vitriol and slander because somebody want to do something good for their people, man, you better watch out, man, because the ancestors, they got their hands in this thing. The gods, the angels, it's real, man, and they gonna reach out and touch you, you know, really soon. So, you know, you might think the Almighty God is the dollar, but man, you go get touched, man, messing around with this descendants of slaves, this freedman thing, man. You know, so this is real. This ain't no grift. Ain't nobody trying to on our part hurt nobody, man. But this freedman thing is real. And I'm kind of glad, you know, when I look back at it in retrospect, Naheem, I'm kind of glad, you know, certain things happen between certain parties, man, because it really made it opened the way. You know, basically, man, like a broom just sweeping the floor and made the way for like the opening of this Freedman philosophy, man. And you know, I'm just glad of it. I'm proud. You know, man, this is something that I could, you know, personally, you know, wear on my chest, man, because it's real. Because I'm a descendant of freedmen. On my father's side, my mother's side, you know. They were basically enslaved in the South, deep in the South, Mississippi, Louisiana. I mean, man, it's just the thoughts. You know, it's something powerful because everybody's saying it in the chat, and they got other individuals now in groups actually like using the term freedman, and we glad about that, you know. But man, I'm gonna have to proudly say that, at least to my knowledge, that we basically brought this up. We got the timeline with the incorporation of the United Sons and Daughters of Freedmen. We basically like resurrecting the usage of that terminology. And it ain't for no reason. It's actually rooted in something very deep. And this is our key, man, going back into dealing with reparations. This is our legal claim for reparations. But this thing is divine, spiritual, you know. You know, you talk about, because I know that a lot of people kind of disparaged one of the shows that we was doing about Lovecraft. But when you look at the Lovecraft show, that was Freedman. You know, that was Freedman.
Hey, one of the brothers' last name Freedman? Freedman?
I think so.
Yeah.
That's
you know?
right.
And you know, that was basically, man, about, you know, Freedman. You know, what's his name? What was the main character name? Tick.
Yep,
Atticus.
Tick them. There was descendants of Freedmen, just like we are. And his daddy was at this all the way back to the Oklahoma, what they call it, Black Wall Street, the slaying of the people of black. All of that's Freedman history, and there's a spiritual context to it. I'm not gonna get into that. But it's even spiritual, man, when you get back to you know, one of the fathers of our Freedman nation, which is Frederick Douglass. You know, yes, Frederick Douglass was a Christian, like a lot of our brothers and sisters in Christian. But you know, man, we got a Freedman spirituality too, because on a plantation, and y'all forgive me for going off on a tangent and adding the spiritual aspect to this thing. But you know, on the plantation, man, we couldn't bring everything that we brought from Africa. But all of these people who coming over here to the United States and stuff like that, practicing and dealing with like the Orishas and stuff, it was like the freedmen that made the way with that, because the freedmen basically crafted the spiritual practices that they go to. Is called conjure and things of that nature. But I was talking about Frederick Douglass. Even Frederick Douglass believed in quote unquote hoodoo or freedman spirituality, you know. And you know, he was basically a Christian, but when the spiritual master that he had went to actually deal with his problems told him to carry what? The St. John root.
That's St. John.
Right, High John the Conqueror
root.
So, you know, Frederick Douglass ended up carrying the root. You understand what I'm saying? And I think he carried that root throughout his life when the energy was bestowed upon him to actually deal with his slave master. And I mean, the slave driver, who they say was one of the worst slave drivers ever. It was hoodoo or conjure or freedman spiritual understanding that helped them through that, man. So I'm gonna just say this, man, you know, this freedman thing is real. Don't play with it. We got ancestors, they woke, they watching. The God, the creator, they watching, you know. So I just wanted to add that to the conversation.
Definitely.
Yeah, well, I want to leave with this, right? This was a book that inspired Callie House. You hear people mention Callie House in terms of being at the forefront of the reparations claim for our people in the late 1800s. It's a book written by a man named Walter Vaughan, right? I think it was published in 1891, right? And it's called Vaughan's Freedmen's Pension Bill, being an appeal in behalf of men released from slavery, a plea for American freedmen, right? And so just to go further to show people that that name is documented. The name Freedman is documented. I like foundational Black American for certain instances, but I'm going to tell you something. Everybody's not a foundational Black American. The reason I say that is because some of the people who came, who even endured slavery, were people who came after the foundation of the United States. So they're not everybody who went through slavery is not a foundational Black American. Some of us may be descendants of that, and some of us may not be. But for certain instances, it makes sense. This here covers everybody. The freedmen, meaning everybody who were descendants of those people who were forced to endure that institution. And so this is well documented. And even with this particular book, and then with Callie House and others coming behind them, the history of the push for reparations is also well documented, and it is a push that that began on behalf of the freedmen, those people who were emancipated by the 13th Amendment in 1865. Those 4 million people who were emancipated into poverty and homelessness. So I would just say that, and me, you know, my family also descendants of these people on both sides. South Carolina, Georgia. It's another southern state. I can't remember off the top, but it's in the papers that we got from ancestry.com and stuff. So at the end of the day, that's our ancestry. That's our ancestors. That's our lineage. And on this side of the nation, brother, on this side of the nation, we descendants of freedmen. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, I'll leave with that. Peace, y'all.
Definitely. Peace. Brother Logic, I'm going to pull your screen up real quick.
Yes, indeed. This is a very good program, and we'll be perpetuating this philosophy in history and education until we can't do it anymore. So when we talk about being a freedman, you understand, When we talk about lineage specificity, this picture right here, right? And I'm gonna show another one, is my oldest known ancestor in my family. She on my mother's side, she was born in 1834 on the Purdue plantation in Georgia. You understand? She was emancipated. She was a part of that freedman identity that came out. She was a part of that. Her children were freedmen. They were born slaves. You understand? And they came out of that. That's in my history. This is my great-grandmother's great-grandmother. You understand? 1834, family. So you already know how long she had lived, decades of chattel slavery before she was even free. You understand? And her children. Can you go to the other picture? And these are her children. You understand? 2 sons and a daughter. So this lady right here is my great-grandmother's grandmother. You understand? And those are her brothers. See, when I say I'm a freedman, and when we say we're descendants and we're all the sons and daughters of freedmen, this is what we're talking about. You understand? They live that life. This is not no storybook stuff that we just read in the history books. But I mean, no, this is our story. So when we talk about reclaiming that legacy, we talking about our own family history. You understand? We had to search for this stuff. We had to search for this. It took my parents a long time to even go through the family and retrieve and talk to the oldest surviving members and even get these pictures, because this history was lost. This lineage was lost. Our tribe was severed and disconnected through lost cause teachings, through domestic terrorism, through all this different stuff that we've been through in this country, through murder, you understand? False imprisonments, people just spreading out, losing contact with each other. But we are trying to mend the broken wires and bring the tribe back together. That's what this freedman philosophy and this freedman thing is about. You understand? So now I know for a shadow of a doubt, I'm like, damn, I'm really am a descendant of freedmen. My eldest known ancestor was born on the Purdue plantation in Georgia. She lived through emancipation. She lived through chattel slavery and emancipation. You understand? So understand, this is a real thing we're talking about. And we don't have to reinvent the wheel and try to come up with something new. Oh, what is we going to come up with that the government is going to recognize us as? They already done recognize us. You understand? It's on the books. We read the acts. We read the HR 613, which talked about the Freedmen's Bureau and talked about freedmen. You understand? We done showed all kind of documentation and went over history about being freedmen. The government knows who we are. Do you know who you are? So once you know yourself, now you will be in the position to save yourself. And we can just get you to think, you will do just that and save yourself. So, and Freedmen knew what I always say before I close out. Our ancestors knew this well, that government is the game and politics is how it's played. Peace.
Indeed. I'm gonna let Josh come on, but I'm gonna go to my little family tree real quick. Being that
see how y'all do.
We're pulling up lineage. Hey, I'm just not gonna be as long-winded as you be.
No, I'm saying, man, I had mine on deck too.
Yeah, okay, cool. I thought you was trying to say something right there.
No.
You know, my mother right here, my grandmother Bessie, her mother and father Ida Way, and my great grandfather Pearlie Way, my great grandfather Wish Way, and his wife who became Cretia Way, and they, you know, that this is that 1870. What is it? The 1870 wall or the 1860 wall, Ali?
1870.
70.
Okay, so and I got one more ancestor that his father Aaron Way. I haven't gotten a lot of information on him yet, but I'm pretty certain Aaron Way was a slave. So, you know, I go down, see if I could get back to where I was at, get to my pop side, and we see my grandmother right there, and then we see her mother, her father is not listed, Then you see their mother and father listed, and both of my lines go. I think my father's line goes back through Charleston, South Carolina, through my
And
grandmother. My
you look
mother's
like you got
line.
some hints there, man, that you gotta those little leaves, you gotta look at those and see, because some of those be hints, and you know, for more information on those people.
Okay, I'm gonna do that. My mother's side goes back to Ridgeville, South Carolina, in Dorchester. So both of my my lines go back to South Carolina. So these are the Freedmen family. This is a name that's etched in the records. Go ahead, brother Josh.
Yeah, no, I was just I was saying, man, when y'all pull out y'all ancestry, man, that joint just give me hype, you know. And so I'm mad. I'm on my phone. I can't pull up the screen share. I was gonna pull up my family tree, you know, because I was gonna show.
Just give them a brief rundown of, you know.
Yeah, well, you know, a lot of times when y'all see, you know, the yellow brothers, you know, the light skin. We not no other tribe. We the same tribe, right? You know what I mean? And I was gonna pull out my family tree, which includes a lot of people from some Europeans. You know, it includes some Europeans. Dude from one guy who fought for his grandfather, I think his father fought in the Revolutionary War, and then, you know, he ended up fighting for the Confederacy, right? And he had signed the ordinance for Virginia to secede from the Union. He also, his son also received a pardon from President Johnson. I actually found the document for that. And that same group of slave owners on my mother's side has, you know, it's on my great grandmother's side and my great grandfather's side. So they were actually, whether I don't know if they knew it or not, but they were some kin, you know. And that just goes to show you the brutality of when we talk about the institution of slavery. We're not only talking about the labor. You know, people ain't want to come off their free labor. They didn't want to come off them free cheeks either, you know, where they can just go and just have their way with whoever they wanted when they wanted. And the wife won't really gonna do nothing about it because she's not trying to come up off that wealth.
That's right. That's right.
And so you know, but man, that's a horrible thing to pass down to generations. So we talk about reparations.
Real quick, remember 12 years a slave. He told the wife, "I'll get rid of you long before I get rid of her."
That's right.
Go ahead, bro.
Yeah, because guess what? That slave ain't gonna inherit nothing. You get rid of that wife, she gonna inherit. She gonna, you know, something happened to you. She might be plotting against you. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's how that stuff works. But you know, that's a horrible institution, and the trauma that comes from generations of that is passed down. So that's why when you look at our families, you know, we can glorify a lot of the things that we've seen in terms of what we overcame coming out of slavery and what we were able to achieve. But we all know it's a whole lot of terrible things that we have as you go back in our family too. And a lot of that is caused through the trauma of coming out of that institution and coming into the, as the brother Logic said, public subjugation and the disappointment, the being defeated and deflated and defamed and just destroyed really through that time period of violence and, you know, lawlessness against us. But I wanted to take it somewhere else real quick. You know, when we talk about the freedmen, and this is gonna maybe take us to another program that we're gonna do at a later date, and we touched on it in a program previously. But we talk about freedmen, we think about like post 1865, when we really, freedmen history should have started in 1774, 1776. That's when freedmen history should have started. So that's why reparations is so important, because the United States did not have to, and according to its own documents, it should not have continued slavery after the colonies into America, you know? And so I just want to say freedmen history should have started 1776 or 1774, really. I know Ali he probably chomping at the bit to go in on that, but I'm not gonna say that. I'm gonna say this. The fact that Reconstruction was overthrown and the Freedmen's Bureau was, allowed to, it was just dismantled and ended. And they reneged on the 40 acres and a mule. And they allowed, terrorism to happen. They allowed theft. They allow all of these atrocities to happen to us. You allow Reconstruction to go away. You don't get to just not ever do Reconstruction again. That's not something that should be a thing where you think you can just forget about, well, it didn't happen, and time has been too long. No, just because you reneged on something, just because you procrastinated on something, if it's something that's long past due, you just need to do it. And that's the thing we got to understand and communicate to our people in America. When people understand what they did, what they were supposed to do, what they knew they should have done, and what they started to do with Reconstruction, and we see that how it was destroyed, it was just ended, and how are we going to let America off the hook for that? That's not how this is supposed to go. So that's why we're resurrected in the spirit and the language of the freedmen, because we need to resurrect the spirit that is going to propel us into a new Reconstruction, for America to do a new Reconstruction. So I want to say that. Peace.
Definitely. Brother Grimm want to share one of his ancestors real quick before we get off here. Go ahead, Brother Grimm. You muted, bro.
This is one of my ancestors. Everybody was showing the Freedman ancestors. So, when I look at Mother, man, in this picture, Annie Walker, I believe my mother told me that this painting was actually made during the one of the expo, the World's Fair that was there, and the family story said that it was basically a special gold coin that was hidden behind this picture. And actually this picture is like a actual recreation of the original picture, because the original picture was severely damaged in one of the hurricanes. So that's my ancestor, Annie Walker, and I just wanted to to share that. And I mean, it's a powerful history, man. It goes back into a lot of Afro history, Afro Creole history, man. And I'm just basically proud to be a descendant of freedmen, man. It's something that, and I'm not disparaging a lot of my brothers and sisters in these other communities who might say that they, Kemetic and Egyptian and things. And I'm pretty sure they honor they bloodlines too, man. But to honor that Freedman bloodline and the things that we've been building on, man, is absolutely magical for me right now.
Indeed.
You know what's interesting, bro? And I pulled up, I'm not going to show anything, but I pulled up my ancestry.com tree that I've been working on. And just looking at the amount of family that you actually have is amazing. And this is something that, we've touched on before. But I'm looking at the line of what would be considered my second great grandparents. 16 people, bro. There's I'm just looking at the ancestry.com, the way it's set up. It's slots for 16 different people. I only found two. I only found 2 of the 16, but it's just so interesting when you really start analyzing how many people are actually involved in creating you, how you came to be, the amount of people that was involved in bringing us to the place we are right now. We have so many family members. It's just amazing. Just amazing. And so for those people, anyway, because now a lot of times people think they, sometimes they'll find free people of color in their families. And this is something that we, spoke on before. 16 second great grandparents. What are the odds that all 16 of them were free people? What are the odds?
Right.
You know what I mean?
That's right.
Really not likely. But I just wanted to say that.
Definitely. So family, you know, we wanted to come on tonight and talk some Freedman talk. We wanted to resurrect the spirit of our ancestors by invoking a name that is embedded in the history of America. And in doing so, we invoke our ancestors. We fulfill the things that were taken from them. We restore the birthright. But we only do this through our own hands, our own political activity. And this is why we are Be the Power. This is why we are Be the Power, so that we can bring this resurrection about. It is something that has to happen because nothing else will work. If you think about it, nothing else will work. This is our family right here. I've called myself Nebu, Abaray, El Bay, and a bunch of other names but at the end of the day, if I wasn't honoring my ancestors, then I wasn't moving in the proper energy to even be successful in the United States of America on a level different from just gaining economic success. Because we have been bred to be put in the positions of power. There are no strange happenings. There's a reason why my bros and I are on here. And those of you who are on here watching with us right now are on here. And those of you who will watch, there's a reason for that. Freedmen first. With that, I'll leave y'all with our platform's motto, which is don't just fight the power, become the power. And then and only then will you have the power to make a change. With that, I say peace.